Welcome to the podcast series, Breaking Barriers, Black Women Excelling in Sport, hosted by Joe Mountford from Beat It with Joe. In this series, we delve into the intricate relationship between mental well-being, mindset, and athletic performance. Join us as we explore the empowering stories of Black women in sports, both as athletes and parents, in our quest to amplify their voices and achievements. Get ready to be inspired and motivated as we shatter stereotypes and celebrate excellence. In this episode, we delve into the experiences of Black women in sport, who not only excel but also stand out amongst their peers. From the unique challenges they face to the opportunities that come with being exceptional, we explore the complexities of being a tall poppy in the sporting world. In this episode, we introduce the concept of being a tall poppy and its implications. We look at the common challenges faced by individuals who stand out in their fields and the impact of being a tall poppy on relationship with peers and colleagues. We'll hopefully look at strategies for managing expectations and navigating potential jealousy. And we really want to start creating a supportive environment that fosters excellence. We start to address feelings of isolation and the imposter syndrome in predominantly white environments. And we will try and make available support system and resources for Black women navigating challenges in the world of sport. Join us as we explore these important topics and shed light on the experiences of Black women who are paving the way for a more inclusive and empowering sporting landscape. One of my special guests today is Linda Mokwena. With a distinguished law degree as her foundation, Linda emerges as a multifaceted entrepreneur, speaker, coach, facilitator, and strategist. Beyond her professional accolades, she plays an important role as a dedicated wife and mother, while also being a keen observer of various sporting events. Although Linda's passion for sport drove her to participate actively, she found herself labeling her performance as the token pick. Recognizing her talents lay elsewhere, Linda selflessly dedicated herself to supporting roles in the field, and noteworthy is her devotion to specializing in sports and entertainment law, a domain where she thrives. Our ongoing dialogue with Linda has now evolved into an exciting and fruitful partnership, marking the beginning of a promising journey together. My second guest is Anele Mthembu, a dynamic business leader with a master's in biological sciences and an MBA. A registered professional scientist and a director, she combines her passion for business with a love for sports, excelling in hockey and touch rugby. A dedicated mother of two, Anele believes in a balanced life of family, exercise, and philanthropy. Welcome, Anele, and thank you for joining us. Welcome, ladies, and thank you so much for joining me. The term tall poppy originates from a concept where successful or high-achieving individuals are metaphorically likened to tall poppy plants in a field. Just as tall poppies stand out above the rest, these individuals are notable for their accomplishments and excellence, often attracting attention and recognition. In the context of Black women in sport, being a tall poppy refers to standing out and excelling in a predominantly white and male-dominated industry, where their achievements may be more conspicuous due to historical underrepresentation and stereotypes. What are some of the challenges faced by individuals who stand out in their fields?
You know, you always have your general problems, regardless of, where you're from, the color of your skin, and we're going to, dig deeper into those elements. But I think no matter the industry, when you step, whether industry, sports space, whatever space you're in, if you want to excel, it means you're coming in and doing things differently. And it means you're coming in with a different perspective, and you'll always either be looked as an absolute lunatic or unhinged to some extent until you do it right? Until you succeed and truly succeed. And then everyone's going, oh, wait a minute, maybe there is something to that madness or to the way they're doing things. You almost have to be a disruptor in the space because there's always a common way on how to go about what you're doing and fulfilling whatever that space is. So everyone is used to what is the norm. And you always almost have to be a disruptor and okay to live in isolation to a certain extent, because I think there's a lot of isolation to it. And you have to be confident and believe in yourself at a level that probably exceeds what is the norm. And I think that is the biggest challenge, is the isolation that comes with it. I think regardless of the space you're in, it's so easy to be isolated and disconnected from the rest of the world, as most people know it, because of those elements. And because to stand out, it comes with a lot of sacrifice. And
so
often
Linda, can I just, I'd love to get both of your opinions on this, but I was chatting to a mum and she's got 2 daughters. They are black girls and she's put them at 2 different schools. And the reason being, both of them are exceptionally good at sport and both of them got bullied in their school environment because they stood out. And but not from the white people, it was from their own people. So, okay, Anele's here, and Linda's both hands went up. Okay, so let's hear from Anele, and then Linda, you can go for it.
So I literally was just jotting down my thoughts, and one of the first things I thought of was like a loss of sense of belonging. You feel like you don't belong anywhere, really. Your people, quotation marks.
Literally just got goosebumps as you said that.
Your own people, so to speak, will start treating you differently, calling you names, or you think you're better than, or you act white, or just because you lead your life in a certain way that is not the same as the rest of the crowd, then you just don't belong with us. So it's a lonely journey. Really is a lonely journey, and you kind of just have to grow a thick skin and just keep pushing on. But it doesn't stop the voices that you hear, the skinnering that happens behind the scenes. You just ultimately end up just having to grow thick skin and being resilient. And it's lonely because either way you don't feel part of, because now you're in this environment that's also not familiar to you. The kids in that environment are treated differently, by the management of the actual sport, the parents, and themselves, the peers. So you just don't belong, especially with the kind of background that we come from. I don't have the best resources. I can barely make it to practice to begin with. Getting to practice is a journey for me.
Yeah,
it would take maybe 2 bus rides, a taxi ride, some walking, some jogging, just to make it on time. So I'm already fatigued before I even get to practice. But yeah, those are the things that came with it. Like, I mean, on just that topic. But there's so much more. I'll let Linda.
Anele, I'd love to talk about exactly the difference, like exactly that is the equipment, the travel, the costs, that stuff, and also not having the support of your parents.
The lack of support from the parents. Yeah.
And then I also want you to share your playing your touch rugby and your hockey in that. But Linda's hand was leaping up and down before, so I really want to hear what you have to say too.
I think it's just such a triggering topic, Joe, for us, because here's the thing, and to Anele's point, is when we say you have no support, especially our generation, because our generation is almost that up-and-coming introductory to, we're a new South Africa. We're really experiencing this so-called new South Africa. And unfortunately for us, And not because they didn't want to. Our parents just didn't have the ability, the capacity, the skills to be able to give us the support, to be able to say, oh, you're playing hockey on Saturday. Let me drop you off with some sliced oranges and make sure you got some breakfast in you. Because chances are they have to be at work themselves to be able to afford the school fees that they are sacrificing to make sure that you can get into the school and be able to do it. So already that whole thing, that the sacrifice of it all starts with our parents, because I can't even remember a day where my mom was able to go and fetch me from school and be like, oh, you were playing, I'm going to come fetch you or pick you up or whatever the case. You made your own way. And now as parents ourselves, I think we're trying to, almost do better in that area. But at the end of the day, I'm very conscious, especially of what, Anele already touched on this, of our people, my own Black people will say, oh, that sounds very white. Oh, you're living a very white lifestyle. And I'm going, why? Because I want better? Because I want different to what you want? The categorization of almost immediately, if you want to step out into the world in a different manner, you are doing something too white for them. Therefore, you cannot belong here. And I mean, this is from childhood. So you cannot belong here with your fellow Black people. Then you go into the so-called white space. And of course, you're not going to belong there because they don't look like you. They don't talk like you. They don't have the same challenges as you. So you're just in this limbo place where you don't belong on either side. And the isolation and the voices just keep getting more and more louder, and just it becomes very, as Anele said, it's so isolating and lonely. And thankfully, I found someone like Anele and a few other friends where it's like, okay, at least we're speaking the same language. But I don't think everybody has that joy.
The words that Anele said, it's like betrayal from your own people and a sense of not belonging. And I think being a teenager and a sense of not belonging is hard enough. And then when you then put it into subgroups because of other reasons, I mean, I think that's even more complicated. It is really, really disturbing. But what I wanted to say was, because I work in the mental performance space, okay? So how much you need to want it if you carry on that journey? Because it would be easier to say, okay, I don't want to actually play or stand out. You don't want to stand out. You don't want to get the voices. You don't want to get the whispering behind your back, as you were saying. So the desire to want it, the desire to be the best, to stick out and to be isolated and to be on your own, it's a big choice with lots and lots of sacrifices, many more than what like when I talk to Z, who's a Black diver that I work with, and I ask her about the consequences she has to give up in order to dive, and it's her social consequence. She could go to her matric dance, but that was it. She can't go to others. She doesn't go on holiday. There are lots of sacrifices in order to do the sport she loves. But if you're a tall poppy, and the reason that you're a tall poppy and you stick out because you're excellent, but also you've been isolated, those are more sacrifices.
Mm-hmm. I think, Joe, it's such an individual thing as well. And the more you want it, the more you'll probably be steadfast and resilient in that. And it's also the discipline. And I think I was fortunate that I had really amazing parents. And at least my mother was very forward thinking in the way she approached life. And I think I saw it in her, and I always giggle a little bit because I have had a full circle situation of feeling like, sure, I am my mother's child. My mother was involved in everything, and she tried everything, and she wanted to be the best in everything at the same time, which is bizarre for most, but I think it made sense to her. And I think it's just that wanting it a little bit more than the person next to you, and saying to myself, if I can get to this point, I know I would have achieved somewhat the impossible to some. but I really wanted it more than anything. Like sometimes there's things in life I'm like, I actually wanted that more than I wanted to breathe, if that even makes sense.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
More than I wanted to breathe.
Anele's agreeing with you. Let's hear Anele.
No. Yeah. I had a different take. I mean, growing up with the sports, it wasn't something that I was like, ooh, my goal is to be the best at this, the sports and that. We played sport because we just enjoyed playing. I just loved playing, regardless of what it is that I was doing. As a result, I mean, I tried every single sport that I could possibly try out when I was a kid. I just used to love playing. I remember being in the jungle gym for hours, and even after hours when we weren't supposed to, when we weren't allowed to. I just wanted to play. I think I just have an adventurous spirit. So for me, sports was fun. It wasn't something that I aspired to, but it just became a thing. It was like, you're brilliant. Oh, really? Amazing. Okay, let's do this. And also I had the privilege of enjoying playing it with my sisters. For the longest time, every time I was playing hockey, I would play with my sister who was 1 year ahead of me. So we had our own little thing that on the field, and I could understand the way we communicate. It was fun. It was genuinely fun. But then the moment it became serious and it was at a high performance level, I think the fun factor just started dwindling. It became a job. It became something that you had to do for the school, represent the school, whether you liked it or not. And we still enjoyed it. Even if it meant that it took us 2 hours to get to a match that only lasted 45 minutes and then another 2 hours trek back home. It was just fun for us. My mother would literally beg us and say, please, enough, give other kids a chance. But we just enjoyed playing. She would beg us. She was like, enough, okay? And, other peers and parents would be like, aren't your parents proud of you? And we'd literally just shrug. We're like, we don't know. We don't know. We just play because we love playing. And the more and more it became serious, and politics became a huge part of the game. And we sensed that, and we knew what was happening as youngsters.
Just explain that. Won't you explain that a little bit? Because if there are listeners that are international listeners, and there are, won't you explain that they understand what you would go through?
So part of the new South Africa, sports that were previously white, had policies. They had to adopt policies to include other races. We stumbled upon this. We didn't go researching about it, but we would hear people talking about it on the sidelines, and the coaches speaking with the parents. White parents. White parents would maybe come to the coaches and complain that why did their daughter make the team? And one of the things would be like, oh no, the policy is we need to have minimum three black players in the team. So suddenly it was like, oh, you're only in the team because you're black, irrespective of the fact that we're brilliant. So we were the
best players on the field.
And then,
in my opinion,
that plays into your psyche as a child, and then you end up, your confidence starts shrinking. So suddenly it was like, oh, you're only in the team because you're black, irrespective of the fact that we're brilliant. So we were
the best players on the field.
And then,
in my opinion,
that plays into your psyche as a child, and then you end up, your confidence starts shrinking, and every time you make a mistake, you're thinking everyone's watching you. Oh, you see. They're only there because they're black. They actually don't really know how to play as well. So, and there was an incident when my sister and I were in trials for KZN, and a friend of hers and her looked over the shoulder of one of the selectors or the coach, and they saw their names with asterisks next to them. And then we joked about it, and we called ourselves the star players, because those were the black players. We were like, it was obvious that these are black players. It wasn't like, okay, there's a list of players who are all good. No. There's an asterisk next to the black players. And from then on, I think.
And how did that make you feel?
Horrible, because you could hear your peers also skittering, like, oh no, they're only in because they're black. my parents told me this or whatever it is. So, I mean, eventually...
Because, Anele, did you have moments of, like, in a rational mind, you know that you're there on ability, but then because of the voices and the parents and the jabba and the fact that it has to be, there has to be a quota system, then that comes into play and it dilutes your belief that
Absolutely.
I have the skills and I have the ability.
My confidence would go so low when I was playing at a high level. But at school, if I'm playing for school, I am going bananas out there. I am owning that field. It is mine. I literally would just numb out anything that's happening behind me. I couldn't hear anything. All I could do was just play. It was like an out-of-body experience. And I literally was like an out-of-body experience. It's like, oh, the game is over already? I'm exhausted. But I only realized I'm exhausted after the game because you're just so into what you're doing. But when I'm playing at a high performance level, I'm constantly conscious of my surroundings. I'm consciously conscious of every move I make, every ball that I miss or every tackle that I miss. They're counting this now. Okay, so this is going to go against me. It's constantly going on. When you're on the bench, it's because I'm not good enough. Oh, yeah, it's huge.
Did your sister play with you for KZN?
We did, but because we're different age groups, most of the time we would play in different teams. But there were times where you have like maybe the under 16, which would include under 15s as well. So then we would play together. But even then, there would maybe one would be in the A team and the other would be in the B team. So most of the time, we actually weren't in the same team when we were on provincial level. Yeah.
Because one of the things that I want to talk about at some stage, it can be in today's podcast or future podcast, is support. Like, what support does one have available if you are in the minority or have these labels? Let's call them labels, because, okay, so you see a star against your name, that's not cool, because you know you're there on ability, but others reframe it as something else. So was there any support other than your sister? If your parents weren't there to see what was going on, you don't have that backing.
Yeah.
And sometimes one's defense, especially as a female, is to be bitchy back, and that isolates you even more.
Yeah, we didn't have a voice. That was not an option.
No,
that was not an option.
I don't feel like even the support was in existence at that time.
You'd have certain coaches or managers who
one or
knew
two
your story, and then maybe they were part of the school staff, and then they would also be part of that management team in the provincial team. So we did have like, I would call her a sponsor, because she was so wonderful, an older lady, much older, and she was absolutely amazing. But even with that, you then, because also, you know, with our upbringing, my parents are very strict, and my mother was always about, do not accept handouts. You are nobody's charity case. So it was also hard for us to accept assistance. Even a lift home, we would say no most of the time and say, no, our parents are coming, but it was a lie. We would still have to trek and we would trek home because we just didn't want handouts. We don't want to be victims. And then also that then builds onto power dynamics. Because then the minute somebody is assisting you and helping you and you're a charity case, now you have to agree to whatever they want you to do.
Yeah.
There was so much. It was so much. There was just so much.
It was so much to navigate at a young age without being able to express it to an older person, to express it to my mom or your parents or an aunt or whatever. And honestly, I want you, those are almost like God-sent individuals, the individuals that were trying their best, trying to carve out space for you to be able to express yourself. But the reality is, there wasn't any formal structures. There wasn't any understanding of the fact that, you know, you are the only one of you are the first Black person or first Black this or whatever the case may be. And there's no one talking to you around that. What does that mean emotionally, mentally? How are you coping? How are you coping with the pressure? Because also our pressures are different, hey, because we're not coming from the same background. I'm not waking up and my breakfast is ready and my kids is laid out and I'm getting into the car and I'm going to go play and situated and someone's waiting for me at halftime with water and slices of oranges. That is not my dynamic, okay? I may be that mom now, but I didn't have that mom. I didn't have
different set of
parents.
expectations. Different set of expectations, right?
Yeah.
We're not even starting on equal footing here. And there wasn't enough conversation around the fact that can we acknowledge at the very least, and that's, I think in my heart, I just wanted at least that, an acknowledgement of the fact that what does it take for me to excel at the same level as a white counterpart?
Oh, so much more. Can I just add, for me, even if we had the opportunity to sound our frustrations to our parents, my mother would tell you, then leave it. So, but we didn't want to. We didn't want to because we enjoyed so much. So we pretend at home as well that everything is hunky-dory. So you see, like you're leading a double life.
So there's just denial on every front. So you're not acknowledging feelings at all.
No.
I just wanted to talk about the handouts and the charity thing. It's like, it's a bit of a double-edged sword because sometimes a handout can be just the trampoline you need to take you to the next level. And I'll tell you why I'm saying that, because we've got experience with it down here. So last year at Hockey IPT, I identified a little black girl who's a brilliant forward, and we've managed to find her some sponsorship this year to help her. And in that process, we've helped 2 other little girls to go to school and take their hockey career to the next level. Now, without that, we have no expectations of anything in return. I don't want that at all. But it's like giving them a good schooling allows them to improve their English, for example. That was one thing that a little girl was really bad at, was English, which then means she can't come to a good school because her English isn't great. But had they not had those opportunities, they're still very young, so I don't know what will happen. But they're not victims. It's just that I don't see them as victims. But I'm not sitting in a position of have not. So what I'm saying is I understand that you could be a victim sometimes and people take advantage of you. And I want to talk about that just now. We're going to have a little break and then we'll talk about that. But said, Dee, we would love you to come and see the university because you are black and female. And when she told me that, my skin just went cold. And I said, this is my job. I said to her, we need to work on your boundaries because I don't want people to take advantage of you because of your color and that you're female. You are a diver, and that's what you're working towards, that you want to go to the Olympics, and that's what you've been sacrificing for so many years. You've been giving up holidays, you've been giving up dances, you've been giving up social things, and someone else is going to take advantage of you. I said, let's not make that happen. When I say that to you ladies, does it ring any bells for you? What do you think?
It rings the bells and the triggers and everything that comes with it. And I think, on the plus side, the eternal optimist in me is like, well, on the plus side, at least they told her the truth. At least they were forthcoming with their intentions and what they want to be doing, right? That's the eternal optimist in me. But the other side, and also just on a side note, thank God Z has someone like you, because I think the conversation of teaching boundaries is such an important one. But it is unimaginable the number of times that you were made to feel like, oh, the color of your skin is why we're even engaging in this discussion. Because we need to meet our quotas, so we will engage with you. And it's just the worst feeling in the world to feel like you're not actually, in the greater scheme of things, good enough for what you're doing, or why you're there. So, yeah, that's what I'm saying. On the plus side, at least they were honest and forthcoming with their intentions. But at the end of the day, I know I'm there for why I'm good. For the reason I'm there is that I'm actually good at this thing. But you're always made to feel less than, quota, oh, please come in so we can tick this box and get it over and done with already.
Oh.
So that's the reality.
It's hard for me. It's really triggering because I can place myself in that girl's position, in her shoes. I know what it's like in real life, what that's like, and it's, I don't know, now now that I'm older, it angers me that such is still continuing, I guess, and I understand it's a system, right? But as a child, it's hurtful because you know how good you are. It's really it's hurtful.
I'm really sorry. I can see I've triggered something really hectic for you.
Yeah, it destroys you, Joe. It destroys you to a point where I don't think you can actually verbalize the destruction it causes, because you have to rebuild yourself. You have to almost shake off the unshakable.
Okay.
And there's this stigma, on your success. There's this thing that's almost permanently attached to your success and you're doing well. That is like, are you successful because you're good, or are you successful because you're black? And we needed to meet a quota.
I do feel, though, that having the fact that she's going through this now will help her in the future. For example, in business, in corporate, whatever the case may be, because you can't run away from the social system. You will experience it at some points in time. You will come across this type of treatment. So in a way that that she's experiencing now, it will make her resilient. It will prepare her better for adulthood, which makes her stand out even more later on, and be prepared for what's to come and how to handle that situation. It's just that with support, I think, with support, she could navigate it better and be more prepared, I guess. So we can't run away from it.
No, and I think she's been blessed. She's got a mum who's got boxing gloves on, and who protects her as much as humanly possible.
Is like that.
Yeah.
So she knows exactly.
She left me a voice note, and she said she'll have a discussion with me about what she's faced because of Z. And I don't know if it's she's faced from the other parents at the school or from her, which I'm sure it is. But the thing is, in diving, it's not like, for example, in a hockey team, Anele, or a touch rugby team, where you're selected to fill a position. Yeah, it's an individual sport, and the judges judge you on your dive, and you can see if it's good or bad, if you know anything about diving. So she's there because she's brilliant. Simple. But would also be an interesting topic to discuss in a future podcast is being the parent. I have done that with working with my golfers. I've been, what is it like to be a parent of an elite athlete, like the highs and the lows and the sacrifices that come with it. So it would be interesting to have a discussion with being a parent today, dealing with these things that you have faced. But what I wanted to ask you is, so say you know that you've been, you've been selected for the team and you're the star, as in the star is next to your name, so you know you've been chosen because you're that star, not the star. And then you become the star, like the proper star. What happens then to your self-esteem? Because, Linda, you were saying it obviously breaks you down to probably a whole lot of confusion of who am I good enough, and Do people choose me because they love me?
Happens.
Exactly.
That's what happens. You're constantly dealing with imposter syndrome.
I mean, I don't think we had the words for it back then, but at least we have a term for it now. And you'll always feel that way. You'll always feel like you don't belong somewhere somehow. And it's like this. It's this dynamic of this diabolical dynamic of, I know for a fact how hard I've had to work to be here.
And still continue.
And still continue to be here. But the constant negating of that by voices, by opinions, by everything else that comes with it makes it so difficult for me to always constantly believe it. And to always not feel like I'm starting on a back foot and I'm constantly having to rebuild myself, reconvince myself, and show resilience and show that discipline of being able to shut out the rest of the world and their opinions. It's such a constant nag and layer. It's almost like you've got, whilst other teammates have 5 steps to climb, you've got 25 every day.
Okay. Every day. Okay. So being the tall poppy comes with like severe consequences. But as a therapist, if as I'm listening to you, I'm thinking for many years, and maybe you continue to do it, you value others' opinions and their ability ahead of yours. And maybe it's time to bring that in, to value your own first. And that's a journey.
I'm smiling a little bit because, it's been an ongoing conversation even with myself and my husband even. And my approach to life at the moment, and there isn't a good enough term for it, it's the fear of abantu bazothini, which loosely translates to the fear of what people will say or think, right?
Okay.
And I think in Black people culture as well, the downside of being this wonderful, close-knit community, we all know each other's business, is people feel like they can have opinions about you and abantu bazothini and always have something to infer around your relationships. And I always make this thing. I say to my husband, I think sometimes you are too caught up in abantu bazothini. We can't channel and live our lives and be worried about certain things. And I think now I'm almost at the extreme end of that. Because I was like, in my teens, I was like, actually, I don't care anymore.
Okay.
I don't care what you want to say. I don't care what you want to do. I don't care if you feel I shouldn't be living my life the way I'm living. I just go. And and maybe I think at the beginning for sure, it was almost like a protection mechanism for myself. And now it's I live a life very much of, this is me, take it, don't take it. And I think it probably comes off as a little like, oh, okay, well, that was a little bit much. But for me, it's, I cannot be justifying myself anymore.
It's the way you've learned to cope, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. I'm just going to slightly change the topic, Anele. I want to bring you back to your touch rugby days, because I'm so excited about the fact that you played touch rugby. And you had an amazing scenario with your touch rugby that you had your sisters play with you. So talk about the joy and then the inevitable end, or the why it ended.
I think so. Touch rugby was also one of those sports where, this is something new that was offered in high school. Let's try it out. And it required more agility and speed, which we already had. So not much, the skill could be learned, and we were all new to it. It was still a very brand new sport at the time, at school when we joined. In fact, it started when I was in grade 8 and I was the younger of the sisters. So we all started at the same time, pretty much. So, it was just fun. It was fun. because most of those girls also were part of maybe the hockey team and the netball team. So we all knew each other. It was like a sorority, if I could say that in American terms. But for us, it was a sisterhood. We were so tight with all the girls that were in the team, regardless of color. We were a sisterhood. And we were blessed to have an amazing coach who was the boys rugby coach. He didn't care about any politics. It was just about performance. Who's good? Let's go. And it turned out that as a team, we were also very good. We were new to the sports and we just climbed the ranks and became like the team to beat throughout our high school career. I can only remember being beaten twice, ever. And one was a traveling team from Joburg who had been playing way far longer, and it was early on in our career as well in touch rugby. So we learned, okay, this is how we defend a team like this. And then another also local school which we had never played before. So the first time they played us, we lost, and we were like, okay, never again. But anyway, yeah, going back to the touch rugby, it was just so much fun. We had so much fun. The traveling together to the sports, to the matches every week, little kumbi with our team manager, was also amazing. It was just fun. We were broke, had no money. We were starving half the time. If we could put together some rands to buy like an ice cream, we were like, yeah, we won. But it was just so much fun. And again, when it became competitive, there was a shift. But not with our team. Our team members actually were so aware. They were so conscious of the fact that we were being treated differently. And they would come to our defense. So even matches became ugly. The refs would blow against us just because it was us. We got to KZN level and they would just park us on the bench. No explain, whatever. Like we would travel. Like again, like it was an effort for us to get there. And
as in that your three sisters.
Yes.
Is that the three sisters?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, okay. Let me just explain. Within the team, our school team, it was myself and my sisters, and then maybe two other players that were whites that would make KZN. They would get playtime. And we would just be put on the bench the whole time. And there came a point where my elder sister actually spoke up. She's like, this is ridiculous. Like, we know we're good. We know we're good. You're not even putting one of us in. Like, at least put somebody in. And then came the talk of, we had to earn our stripes to you must just sit there and wait your turn. Whatever eventually we were, at that point, we're old enough to be like, this is not for us. So yeah, it was.
The joy was gone.
Joy was stolen. It was gone. The politics were ugly. They were ugly. Ugh, no.
So that was like the passion killer for you.
Passion killer. I think when the time we got to play touch rugby at a high level, we had experienced all of that from our core sports. So my elder sister was a netball player, and then myself and the middle sister were hockey players. So collectively we've had these experiences from our core sports, and we didn't have voices, and eventually which I think we rebelled, and we were just like, we're not having it, we're not going to be treated like this. And then they were like, oh well, like take it or leave it kind of thing, and we were like, okay, leave it, deuces, we're out. But that was touch rugby. But that touch rugby was a secondary sport for us, which we genuinely played for the love of it. Hockey was serious. I mean, it got to a real serious point because there were expectations. You are the star player in the school, therefore the expectation is every year you're going to make KZN and hopefully make the A team. So that was almost like a job. And throughout high school, it felt very competitive. But it got to a point, like I said, the politics, where my sister and I, like this is like now her final year matric. I was in grade 11. We got selected. And again, every year there's this debate of how we're going to make it to the enterprise, because it requires traveling, and that means money, and our parents could never afford those, let alone the school fees. And we'd obviously get some sponsorships going on, like raffles, whatever. That's never enough to cover the full cost of the trip. And also obviously with the ugliness going on, my sister in matric we devised a plan. She was like, okay, these people don't understand our culture. We will use our culture to get our way out of this. We didn't want to actually participate at all. Like, we've never told anyone this other than like our real close friends. So whoever hears, they know us, tough. But my sister were like, okay.
As I proceed to hide.
So we told them, listen, we can't make the enterprise this year. Why? No, we've got a traditional ceremony that we need to attend. Or can't you ask your parents to ask, just to give you permission to miss the ceremony? No, it's very important. Who's the head of the family? My dad. My dad.
I'm sorry, I'm laughing.
The one who decides.
I'm literally in this moment.
He's the one who decides what happens. Isn't there a higher person? No. He's the head. So you can't play at all. No. And we just got out of it.
Was that because you wanted to play, but there was the fact that people had to raise money for you? Was that too much? Did that feel?
We would have sleepless nights as kids. And we'd share a room. My sister and I would be like, I'm also up. Oh, you're stressed. I'm stressed about where we're going to get this money to go to this trip. Yeah. I'm also stressed. We can't ask our parents. We know they can't afford it. We're just going to be a nuisance to them. So we're always constantly thinking, like, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? We don't want to
this is insane. So everybody says there's got to be a quota system, but the pressure's next level.
I want to add as an outsider observing Anele and her sister, for example, right? Whereas my dynamic was slightly different in the sense that I think if it came down to it, my parents would probably do it, make a plan or whatever the case may be. But in this scenario, as a person watching them, and I know it because Anele would be like in the morning, you could see she's kind of like come to school and this thing is like top of her mind, right? And we're talking about it and we're going, okay, but what if you do this? What if we do this? What if we do that? We're teenagers. Why are we devising plans?
Yeah. And so you go into the defensive and you go,
why are we,
why are we for school kind of thing?
Why are we debating how to make things commercially viable? We were supposed to be teenagers.
Yeah.
And just really...
You're traveling to the trip. You don't look the same as the rest because can't afford the new kits, the new bags. And you're traveling with like the 1992 bag. Now we are in 2001. The logo's changed. The color's faded.
So again, it affirms that you're different.
Yeah, it affirms that you're different. And you're like hiding. Yeah. You always like behind the group. You're like just straddling there at the back. And then you get promised, oh no, if there's leftover, you'll get given. And we're like, we want it, but we don't really want it. It's just...
So it's continuous again. It's the continuous that you don't.
Another layer. Yeah.
Another layer.
Yeah. So to answer your question, Joe, like the passion we really love the sport, but the politics and everything that came with it was just too much. It was overriding everything else. It was just a huge price. It was just not worth it.
It came with a huge price.
Yeah, it wasn't worth it.
Ladies, to end off this series, because we're going to have, I reckon we've got, I was going to say 3, but I think there are many more to have. If the things that we talked about today, if there was any advice you could hand to your youngsters, what would it be? If there was one thing that it is a tool that you could pop into their toolkit, into their hockey bag, into their tog bag. And I mean more of a life skill, like you are good enough, or, I mean, that's such a simple thing. But is there anything that you can think about? Like I say?
So I think, and I'm almost going to give the advice based on what I wish I had heard at the time. It's okay to be different. It is absolutely okay to be different, to be built different, to look different, to have different dreams, and to want to be a trailblazer. If you want to have bigger dreams than your current situation, it's absolutely okay.
Oh, I love that.
It is more than okay. Hang on to the things and the qualities that make you different. Clutch them close to your heart and love them evermore. Because at some point, those differences are going to be the things that make you a star.
Yeah, I love that.
In a nutshell.
And you say it with such beautiful emotion. Thank you so much. Linda, thank you.
I had to, because if I overthink it, I was going to lose it.
Okay.
But that is what I really wish I'd heard as a child, more than anything in the world. So from that perspective, that's all I can say is just hang on to it and clutch it close.
And maybe you need to say that message to you also. Yeah.
I have to remind myself every now and then. But that's the one thing as a child, I think, and I fight to embed in my children as well, is for them to know that their differences is exactly why I love them.
Oh, divine. Lucky them. Anele, what would you say?
Okay, so this is also from experience for me, and I see it still in my life and people around me, for example, my husband, in business and corporate, wherever. So for me, it's beat them with excellence. Beat them with excellence. Just be good at what you do. Your work will speak for itself, regardless of whether you look different, you sound different. The world is unfair. It is like that. There's nothing we can do about that. So control the controllables, control you and how you approach the world. So just do the best that you can absolutely do at any point in time throughout your life. And honestly, your work will speak for itself. I went back to my high school for our 20-year reunion. And I'm also now taking my niece through the walls and I'm speaking to the staff and they remember my work. They're like, even though you may look slightly different, like, yeah, of course you remember the Sabella sisters. I mean, they remember because our work speaks for itself. Yeah. When all is said and done, just be good. Just do the best you can do in life. Beat them with
let your actions speak. Yeah, great. Thank you, ladies. Thank you so much.
I encourage you as an audience to interact by sending questions on Beat It with Joe on Instagram. You can also find a link to share your own stories in a voice note or questions in the note below. Please can you support this podcast by subscribing and sharing with friends and family. It would be great if you can leave a 5-star review or just a review. And join our community so together we can support and improve each other's lives. In our next episode, I would like to talk about role models and how important mentors and role models can be. I would like to continue to talk about creating a supportive environment that creates excellence rather than tearing each other down. Thank you for listening, and we look forward to chatting to you next time.